I didn't have time to order pizza, and it made me wonder, why don't we have any drive-through pizza places?
They have delivery, though.
No, but I didn't have time to order delivery and wait for it to come.
Oh.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why aren't there any drive-through pizza places?
Why aren't there?
You can order it for pickup, too, though.
But I didn't want a whole pizza. I just wanted a slice.
Oh, yes, you're right.
That does bring a good question. Like, I mean, a whole pizza? No, I don't think a drive-through would be possible unless you really order beforehand.
But why have we decided that pizza is stationary food?
Is it because triangles can't roll?
What?
Get out.
Okay. Is it because it's too close to the Illuminati, therefore you're willingly to it?
Hello, listeners, and thank you for joining us today on Those Nerds Over There, the podcast where we celebrate and discuss all our favorite nerd-themed content. We're your hosts. I'm Alan.
And I'm Sal.
And I'm your worst nightmare.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Hughes. Is this where you wrote, like, the whole Pokemon? Who is this Pokemon?
Who's that Pokemon?
Yeah. It's Hughes from down there.
Hughes, you're basically a Pokemon.
Yeah. I should have an index.
But listeners, this is our very close friend Hughes. He is the other person that runs a blog with Sal.
Yes, it is definitely more his blog than my blog.
They don't know that. They don't know that. Don't tell them.
Oh, I'm sorry. Karen, edit that.
Okay, yes.
Hughes is also a longtime friend of mine, and he's here with us today.
So did you just cut out, or did you just...
No, that was it.
Sentence? Okay.
Oh, okay. I was like, I couldn't tell. I feel like there was something more heartfelt here, but okay. It's here.
No.
Yes, he is with us today because he is a fellow nerd, and, you know, we like nerding out with other nerds.
That's good. I like nerding out too.
All the heartfelt sentimentality, that's gonna be in the subtext, guys.
Heartfelt sentimentality.
Good use of words. I like it.
We're not talking about
Thank you.
sediment, right?
Nah.
No.
Like
No.
small rocks, pebbles.
Boys, we did it.
We did it.
We successfully Naruto ran our way into Area 51.
Yeah.
We beat the government. We freed all the aliens.
That's not true because time and space would be warped by now.
It's true. Although I will add, though, so my cousin is part of the student body, and he's in charge of putting up the flyers. And so at school, they had this event, like it was just a gathering for their 8th grade, and he needed to make flyers. And his theme was Area 51 raid, and oh my goodness. Like, his flyer was covered in memes, like Karen, Fortnite, Kyle's. I'm like, this is what you're putting? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, you do you. He also went to school in a Naruto headband.
Memes are invading the school system.
Yeah,
I think that's wonderful.
It's great. But the day after, I was like, so how was the event? He's like, yeah, like half the people got it, the other half didn't get it. Like, that sounds about right. This is welcome to real life, man. In fact, I think the numbers are less. Yes, memes. The culture of humanity is memes.
Nah.
And it's great.
I mean, I for one welcome our meme overlords.
Our meme overlords.
Hey, it's the best way to get like subtle bits of information real quick.
Right up there with Amazon and Disney.
Oh, and what about Google? All hail Supreme Leader. I feel like, okay, if we were to rank things like in terms of hierarchy, like Google would be like, I don't know, a KGB or something, just like in the background.
Oh, geez.
They control things, but like you're just like, okay, you know, just let them do their stuff. And Amazon would probably be like, I don't know, the czar.
I think this is crossing very dangerous territory.
All right, let's just get this boat and paddle our way back. Please, please don't hurt me.
You made me think of like Mount Rushmore, but instead of the 4 presidents, it's the heads of Google, Amazon, Disney, and then just a meme.
Yeah, basically,
God.
you know.
How do you capture the essence of meme?
You can't capture it. It just happens.
There's some magic so that when it's a different meme for every person that looks.
Oh, dear God.
It's like, what meme do you see?
Oh, wait, is this what they're going to do as psychiatrists now? Hey, okay, so what meme do you see on this ink right now?
And with the fucking Rorschach test.
It's like, by determining the meme that you see, there's the issue right there, because there's so many different memes. Like, it's memes are complex enough where it's like more than a picture. It's a
What
picture
has
that
our reality become?
meme culture.
Oh,
We can't escape
God.
it, even if we try.
Okay, but enough about meme culture. I think it's killing us slowly. Let's do a nerd question.
Okay, boss.
For first-time listeners, thank you for joining us. This is what we call the Nut Jar. It's a jar we filled with listener-submitted questions. Hughes, you have a question in here, I'm pretty sure.
I know I do. Do I remember it? Not really.
Well, that's good. Yeah, if we draw it, then you'll be surprised too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But listeners, if you have like a fun question and want to shout out on the show, feel free to send those to us on Twitter at ThoseNerdsCast or our email thosenerdscast@gmail.com. If you do send in a question, be sure to include some kind of social media tag so we can shout you out. But let's go.
Had a lot more bass to it this time.
All right, so no, it's not your question, Hughes.
Darn.
But this week's question comes from a longtime friend of the show, Kazel.
Queso.
Kazel.
Sounds like a spice.
Meh, like basil?
Oh, that's an herb.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, continue.
No, you're good. I'm dumb. You can find Kazel on Twitter at Kazeloo, Cazeloo. She's an artist by trade. And oh gosh, she recently did a piece for that game that now the name escapes me, but with the telekinesis.
Control.
There we go.
Wait, what? Telekinesis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so confused.
I'm very confused too. I was watching her play it on stream and I thought, this reminds me of Dead Space.
Oh.
Did you ever play Quantum Break?
I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
Oh, well, it's like that, but never mind.
But Kazel asked, who is your favorite superhero?
Oh.
Oh, how on brand, foreshadowing.
On brand? This ain't the Supreme. Get out.
Who wants to go first?
What defines a superhero?
I guess they need to have powers and that be a hero.
Why do we always have to go over semantics?
The semantics.
I think a superhero is pretty cut and dry, Hughes.
What if I like firefighters, huh? Can they be superheroes?
They can. If you believe.
So if I don't believe, they don't exist, right?
I don't think that's how that works.
Oh, darn. Okay.
Well, if no one has anything, I can go first.
All right. I accept
Please.
this.
I've talked about this many times, so it would come to nobody's surprise if you've listened for any amount of time, but my favorite superhero is Superman.
The classic.
Classic, a very tragic character and very complex character that people don't give the time of day for some reason. He's the best. You guys are missing out. But I've explained on many occasions why he's great, so I won't re-say that for the millionth time. But yeah, Superman, amazing.
I hope it's the same one, but there's a Superman cameo going to the Arrowverse, and they said the Smallville Superman's reprising his role.
Oh.
I figured you might be interested in that because you grew up on Smallville.
More foreshadowing.
Well, never
Okay.
mind.
Sounds just like this walking bookcase right now with pages spilling out. We just collect the notes.
But anyway, who's your guys' favorite superheroes?
I have somebody in mind, if you don't mind me sharing.
Go,
Please.
Yeah, go for it, please.
All right. So this one immediately popped in my head ever since like I saw the movie as a kid, and just bear with me, okay? So my favorite superhero is Flint Lockwood from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. All right, the book was amazing.
Okay.
Okay, and the movie
book
was
had nothing to do with him. The book had nothing to do with the movie.
As a child, you know what? I like the idea of food, okay? But the movie, no, definitely the movie and Steve the monkey, his best companion in the world, it solves,
Oh my God.
one of the major things of society, and that's like food. Even though he created too much of it and it was a problem. But I just like his personality and like the steps he does into like honestly providing for this fictional society. I don't specifically remember where it is, but to be able to create food so that people don't really have to quote unquote go hungry, because that's a real thing. And his whole procedure and how he fixes it because he kind of messed it up in the process.
I was gonna mention how completely absurd it is that you mentioned Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but
You're welcome.
that actually sounds kind of nice.
It's a pleasant dream to be surrounded by food.
Okay.
Oh, you want me to say like Aquaman or something?
No. You stick with what you love.
You just made me think there's a message in that movie about food waste.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Did you ever see the sequel to that movie?
I did.
Oh, snap.
All I remember is how brilliant the leak joke was.
Oh yes. There's a leak on the boat. Fast forward now, that's actually the same leak that Sir Fetch is using.
Of course.
Ah!
Full circle.
All right, Alan.
Hello.
There's only going up from here.
Oh, that's a good movie too.
Up. I'm trying to think, and I'm doing that thing where I'm pulling a blank, and I know I'm gonna remember something later. Because, I feel like I was about to default to Batman, but I don't want to do that right now.
You don't want to default, or you don't want to admit your favorite superhero is Batman?
Both.
It's both sound very convincing to me. In fact.
I think that thought came to mind due to recency bias, because, the last comic series I read was The Batman Who Laughs, and it was very good. Very... every issue opened up on this Batman monologuing about the idea of happiness. I'm like, oh damn, this is sad and deep.
It's great because you don't expect that kind of thing from Batman, since he's supposed to always be brooding and stuff.
Brooding.
But there's more layers to Batman that people don't know.
Just like
he's an onion. My favorite superhero is Shrek.
Or as Gordon Ramsay. Wait, what?
I think Shrek would be labeled as a fairy tale character. Not a superhero. Although the song I Need a Hero is played, so that could cause confusion.
Shrek, the original meme.
Oh my god, you're right.
It's true. Whatever happened to, the whole cast of Shrek? Eddie Murphy kind of disappeared.
They moved on?
I guess.
Or do you mean the characters in the world?
I mean, we could think about that if you want. That's not necessarily what I was thinking of.
No, let's go back on track.
All right,
Let's go back on track.
Back on the rails.
I think I've started to grow more appreciation for Nightwing, though. Or just Dick Grayson.
Okay.
Well, I think it's just kind of because he's got all, I guess, the quote-unquote powers of Batman, but he isn't a cynical asshat.
Yeah. One YouTuber that I like watching said that Dick Grayson was Batman's greatest accomplishment.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Sorry, Jason Todd and Damien.
I mean, Jason ended up kind of becoming a bad guy, so
As they all do sometime.
And Barbara, sorry.
Yeah, well, it happens. There can only be one, right?
Dang. I think, I don't want to say I'm inclined to agree, but I think that's true. Like, I love all the Bat children, even Damien, despite him being this petulant child.
The Bat children.
Yeah, but like, I think there's something lovely about that then. Like, Batman acts or treats himself like this horribly broken person, but he raised this wonderful person that, I don't know, is so much better.
Exactly, which is why Titan sucks.
Oh no.
Wait. I thought the next season's supposed to be decent.
It's supposed to be.
Oh, I guess it's...
I'm not going to go on a tangent about Titans.
Oh, I definitely was there for that. Yeah, no, I listened to that.
Anyway, but yeah, I get that. I like that. It's a good answer.
Yeah, I think, I'll go with Nightwing.
Have you read Nightwing's comic?
No, I haven't read anything about Nightwing. The only thing of Nightwing I've seen are just like completely animated, and then a few like videos of comic people going over his character.
Okay.
And there was like one video about just like appreciating Nightwing's butt.
Yeah.
I feel like I heard about that too.
Everyone appreciates him.
Even Captain America and the Marvel Universe.
I think just recently Sus sent me a picture and he's like, who knew Dick Grayson was so thick?
Ah! Oh,
yes.
Sus.
I mean, if you search it up, it's like the first thing that pops up. Like,
what, Dick Grayson thick or just Dick Grayson?
I will read you, okay? The bootylicious history of Dick Grayson's greatest superpower, his butt.
That's the first article?
Oh, yes, and there's two others that pop up as well.
Okay,
delicious.
But anyway, I don't even know what we were talking about.
Apparently butts.
Listeners, what are your thoughts on Dick Grayson's butt?
Yes, this is gonna get a lot. Yep.
And who's your favorite superhero?
While you're at it, who's your favorite?
While you're at it.
Since you're here anyways, might as well pick your favorite one.
Before we move on to what we got excited about this week, we wanted to thank our patrons so much. Eloy and Sus, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for giving us the pleasure of setting aside this time to talk about Dick Grayson's butt. We love you guys.
Butt-tastic.
So Hughes.
Yes.
What'd you get excited about this week?
I'm gonna refrain from the whole hype of Borderlands 3 because I don't own it yet. So let's just put that in the back burner.
Surprisingly, out of the three of us, Sal got it before the two of us.
That fuzz bag.
It's strange because you're the one that made me want to play it, and then you guys were both super excited about it, then didn't buy it.
We're still very excited. I just... it's a dumb reason. I don't want to have my whole library split between so many different applications.
See, okay, yeah, I'm on the same board as Alan. Like, my question was like, okay, so if there's DLC, which I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get, or at least some of the DLCs, is it gonna be all separate? Will it work on Steam if I get on Steam? Like,
okay, but the problem with that logic is you already have so many applications. Like, what is one more?
You're assuming that I have a whole bunch of applications? How dare you?
Well, I know you have Apex. That's an application.
Yes.
You have Overwatch, right?
I don't actually have it right now. I purged everything. If I don't use it, it's purged.
But anyway.
Purged.
Whatever.
So what did you get excited about, Hughes?
Okay. So you guys may not know this, although Alan and Sal do know this. I'm really into photography because of just how much creativity that you can put into each photograph, and each one is always different, and the memories that it makes. So recently I've been interested in vintage lenses. I've always been interested in lenses in general, but vintage lenses have always kind of put me on the edge because these lenses were made like way back when, people were just like, oh, this is the greatest thing, and now we have phones with cameras on them and people take them for granted.
Uh-huh.
And the lenses themselves, like specifically talking, I'm more interested in like these lenses, and it's very Japanese. I don't know why Japanese people do this, but
Wait,
it's
what?
the Asahi Pentax Super Takumar, because super moniker in front of anything is just top drawer good stuff.
And how old is this lens?
So this lens was made in it started in the 60s, like the mid 60s.
Oh my god. So
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. And this is like still compatible with cameras today?
And so okay, so that's the beauty of lenses made back then versus lenses made now. And you don't even have to think about the lenses, just things in general. Because things in general made back in the day, they were just like, oh, cut dry, this is this. Whereas things now, oh yeah, you have all these electronic pieces that connect from A, B, and C. And so literally the reason why these lenses still work to this day is because it's a hunk of metal with glass in it. So I can adapt it to my camera and just manually focus it. If I try to do this now, like all these cameras like, oh yeah, the computer doesn't talk to this thing, which is freaking out because that's the beauty of vintage lenses.
Oh.
So you also need an old camera that needs to be compatible?
So I do have an old film camera, my Canon AE1, which I love to death, 50mm FD 1.4. Ugh, delicious.
I'm sorry. Did you say film?
Film, yes.
Film. Oh wow.
Film.
And that's so analog.
What is film?
So
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Film is a layer that builds over things when you let them sit for too long.
Okay.
This has been homophones with or homonyms with Hughes.
Nothing but a thin layer of film to cover this up. Okay.
So do you know how to develop photos then, Hughes?
I haven't developed photos by myself personally. I've done research, and from my experience, it's not too difficult. Again, from my research, and I've been around people that have developed film, either through high school or just friends of friends that I've met and so forth. I typically go to a place to get it developed, mostly because since I don't shoot that much film, I just don't find the reason to develop because I have to just kind of make a dedicated room for it. If you get my drift, like a dark room and all that fun stuff. Just like I don't want to do that yet. But film has its own, different category. But back to the whole vintage lenses. Yes, nowadays you can adapt lenses to your digital camera, and so I have my M42 screw mount, which is literally you take the lens and it like screws in like just a random any screw kind of quote unquote more specific towards like a vintage hunk of metal film camera, and I just adapt it to my camera and I just have to focus manually and it just does its stuff.
Interesting.
I know, right? Just using all this stuff back in the day. And, granted, this lens is it's like 60 or 50 years old. It's not going to have like the best, like edge to edge, meaning the corners aren't going to be as sharp as lenses now. But, you're paying like $60 for a lens and it still has a good quality and it's not covered up by a bunch of stuff. And that's the main thing. Like you talk about photoshopping things and sometimes you just cover up all of like the small nuances and make something, a little gem.
Right, for like modern photography.
Yep.
That's interesting. Are vintage lenses like popular to the point where they're expensive?
I would say some of them are definitely expensive because so back in the day, like compared to now, lenses were made they were still manufactured by factories, but the demand wasn't as high and they were obviously more expensive back then too. And so certain lenses, especially when I talk about like a really fast aperture, that means that the f-stop, which is the hole where the light goes through, is very low. Like 1.4 is 4 times brighter than f2.8. that means that it has to have more glass in there, because the more glass you have, the straighter the image can go into the sensor. And so some of those lenses are like, they don't make that many copies. Like I think one of them is the Super Takamar M42 85 1.8. That one is expensive. If I could find one now, it's like what, $350? Then that's today, and it's like 60 years old. But yeah, lenses, delicious stuff.
I think I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around. So I guess, can you give me some clarification on like, I guess the effect the vintage lens versus like a modern lens has on the end picture?
So I would say that's kind of up to the person. There are distinct characteristics, like modern lenses, I will say, kind of like your smartphone, because there is a lens on your smartphone, but on top of the fact that the sensor is smaller, everything appears quote unquote sharp. When you move on to something that you can change the lens out of, now the sensor is going to be either larger or sometimes they are smaller, but the body itself interprets the light going through the lens, and that can be changed, giving you the opportunity to change it. And what a lens does is it kind of transforms how that looks. And vintage lenses, because they were made in simpler times. I hope I'm getting to the main question here. I realized I was just dancing around for a second. The coatings that they used back in the day are different from now, mostly because procedures and stuff have changed a lot. Like, one of the lenses that I'll mention is the SMC, so super multi-coated Takamar 35 f2. Yeah, so that lens is good, but it's also radioactive because of thorium coating. So they obviously don't make that anymore. You can still find it. Just know that if you use that lens for 6 hours a day for a month, that's about as much radiation as an X-ray on your chest. So,
excuse me.
So what? So you're telling me people? You're telling me people with this lens need to also own a lead box?
Some lenses, not all lenses, because obviously they're like, oh, you could use this. Oh, some people are, yeah, it's radioactive. We can't. FDA won't approve this. And so those are the things that you just have to be mindful of. But the characteristics of a lens made back in the day versus now is it's a lot simpler, and so you get something technical like micro contrast, which I can explain the best of my abilities. Is if you take a picture of something and you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, look at how these shadows kind of pop out, and like if you take a picture of like a brick wall or some trees or something, all the minute details kind of stand out without you messing with the pictures at all. Versus now, where in order to make the whole photo appear sharp, because we all want things to be sharp, they have to kind of adjust the focal plane of the glass so that it meets those, thus taking away some of those qualities. And each art, I guess, in photography has its own niche, and where, okay, I need edge sharpness. Like if it's architecture, yeah, I want to see the corner of that room. That's fine. Like I would like to see the whole room. But if you're taking a picture of a person, well, I only care if the middle is the focus. In fact, if the edge is kind of blurry, it pulls the face like more in front and more center, because you're directing, your leading lines to the subject. And that's kind of the beauty of vintage lenses, is they were kind of targeted in that aspect. And of course, you can kind of change the edge and the sharpness via changing, various aspects of the lens, whether it be f-stop, meaning how tightly the diaphragm inside the aperture is.
I think I got an idea. It seems like there's just less fuss with vintage lenses, that you take the picture and right there all the minutiae is there, while modern lenses, you can get the same details, but you can also modify for some other stuff you want.
Yeah. And it's kind of like nowadays with cars being more and more technologically advanced, that's a good thing for safety per se, because now cars are thinking, quote unquote, because they have these computers running all these algorithms and stuff, checking your surroundings, etc. But if something goes wrong with the electronics, that's it with the car versus like a manual car where you kind of have to do more work to it. But that thing is, because it's using that human part of it, it's quote unquote more, it'll just last quote unquote longer. Of course, if you don't take care of it, then it's going to go down the drain. But it's just, it's been made and it's tried and true, and it just do what it needs to without any glamour, without any fuss per se.
So for do companies still like remake vintage lenses, or is this like a market completely based on like consumer buying and trading?
So a large part of it is driven by like the used market. So like think about eBay and stuff, Craigslist, pawn stores. Honestly, they have a lot of used vintage lenses because people they don't know, or some people just have a lot of them from back when they don't use anymore. But there are groups of people that do make vintage lenses, and the one notable one's lomography, which is kind of it's like a hipster movement for photography, I would say.
I'm listening.
Because yes, welcome to the photography side. We'll take your picture and not tell you that we took it. Because lomography focuses on the delicate aspects of retro vintage film photography, without getting too in depth about it, because I personally don't do that much lomography, but they do have their own lenses that are manual and you focus yourself, and they do produce lenses. There are companies nowadays, like modern companies, that do make modern lenses, but they make the lenses manual, so there's less of a cost to the electronics on the inside and more of a focus on the glass elements so that you can kind of do it yourself. Some of those be like Rokinon, Samyang, Irix, and just to mention a few. Those are the companies that they make their own lenses that are quote unquote up to modern standards, but there's no electronics in it. So you have to just kind of deal with it yourself like a vintage lens would, and just focus, pull on your own and see how it is. And, something about that in itself is kind of bridging the gap between vintage lenses, of course, those lenses made back in the day with the existing technology back in the day, versus now where there's more of like an effort to kind of meet demands and use certain procedures that adhere to various code lines, versus before where it's like, I want to use this lens and make it this way because I can.
Wow. This is like a whole new world.
A whole new world.
Okay.
This sounds like some high tier like aesthetics. Like this sounds way too high class for me with like photography using vintage lenses.
It's I thought, like, at first I was like, vintage lenses, who wants a lens that's like, as old as that rock up there? Like, jeez, this is a hunk of metal that can't do anything. When I started doing film photography, and it was pretty recent, like I was doing film for the past few months so far, but before that, my grandmother, she was doing photography. And she used film, and that's kind of how I got exposed to it. She would take pictures of the film, and then we would go together and go to a place to get it developed. And so there's this whole nostalgia factor of like being at that moment, taking a picture, and then waiting for like all joyful, kind of like when you order an Amazon package. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to come. Like, or maybe I do know what's going to come, but I'm just waiting excitedly for that package. The same thing with film photography and getting those pictures developed, because you're just trying to see that end result. And I think that's the biggest appeal to vintage lenses, and an extension vintage or just vintage manual camera bodies, because like you're not taking a picture and like reviewing it a whole bunch and like, oh, I gotta do this. You just take it and that's it. Like you can't, if you want to change it, you can change it minutely. But other than that, you're just kind of stuck with it. And you get to still relive those moments. And I think the plus for me is that when you take those pictures, you kind of forget that like what you took, because you don't have a chance to look at it, and it's just a big surprise at the end. Like, of course, some of them are like, oh, this is just horribly out of focus, and this is like, oh my gosh, good picture.
Yeah, that actually sounds really cool.
it's just a new breath, like a fresh breath.
I was say that just sounds really real. Like this old photography really being this true, capturing a moment, and then modern photography, this constant like revision.
Yeah, it's like falsifying reality. It reminds me of how nowadays receiving a handwritten letter is a lot more fun than getting an email.
Yes. email just reminds me of work because
When,
the busyness.
when has an email ever been fun?
Yeah.
It was probably fun to the first people that got emails.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And I will quote this from one of my professors that he's pretty old and he was working in the time of the emails. He said that, before then when I was working, I would have to send mail to people and like meet up at these points in time well in advance. And then when email came out, oh, it's great because it's so convenient. But the problem is now I get 500 emails and I have to just check all these emails. And it's like a plus, but then also a severe minus as well, which of course, the convenience factor is definitely there. But it's so convenient to the point where it's just like taking it over.
Yeah. Film.
Thank you, Hughes. I felt like that was really enlightening.
Yes. You're welcome.
Alan.
Hello.
Hello there.
The angel from my nightmare.
Oh, I'm glad you know more of the lyrics now. Anyway, what did you get excited about this week?
All right, so I feel a little sheepish now because it's not as high class or I guess high concept.
Alan, you have a highest of class and concept. Lay it out on me.
Thank you. While I'm sitting here in my Walmart shorts.
Alan, a concept.
I don't know.
It's a concept.
But yeah, I got excited about Carmen Sandiego season 2.
Yes.
Oh.
Where in the world is she?
Where in the world is... I can't sing as well as Carmen.
Apparently they didn't find her in the first season.
Oh. So like, where's Waldo, but Carmen Sandiego?
There you go.
So Carmen's a lot more fun. Oh my gosh. Another quick tangent. There was a Carmen Sandiego got Level Up Expo, and her costume was so good. And she carried her own, like, costume-specific business card.
Nice.
Whoa.
Yeah. Sorry, but... So, yeah, I did watch season 1 when it came out, and I was pleasantly surprised by the show. And for us, 3 days ago, the season 2 trailer dropped. And, was it October 1st is when we're getting season 2. And I don't think either of you saw the first season, right?
Nope.
No, but you did talk about it on the podcast.
Yes, you did.
I did talk about it once, mostly because it was shocking that this, like, 80s, 90s edutainment game was getting another television adaptation.
No kidding. I remember getting it on, like, a CD at Quiznos Sub.
Quiznos,
yeah. Remember?
I forgot that when places would give you those CDs.
Dude, it was great. You stick it in your computer, you're like, this is great, and then it turns out it's like a trial, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't exist during that period of time. I've never gotten one of these Quiznos CDs.
The question is, how often did you go to Quiznos?
Almost never.
There you go.
There you go.
It's okay, you're not missing much.
I don't think I'd been to a Quiznos until my freshman year of college, actually.
No.
Hashtag thank you, Seattle.
But back to Carmen Sandiego. I did watch the first season, and I thought it was phenomenal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it introduced one of my like favorite villains, which is kind of weird. Her name is Paper Star.
Paper Star.
Yeah, she's kind of like Conan from Naruto.
Oh.
Like her power, she can turn her quote unquote power. No one here is super, but she can turn like any sheet of paper into like a lethal weapon.
That is the best like ability. That sounds awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
It's like death by origami. Oh gosh.
Yeah, she has these exactly. She's got these like these gun holsters. She's just filled with basically sticky notes, and she's just pulling them out, making ninja stars. And you see her start like shredding boulders with them, trying to kill Carmen.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, that would qualify as a superpower. I would say that's.
It's pretty, and like one of the more terrifying things they showed was like, since all she needs is paper, when she ran out of her own supply, she just grabbed some museum brochures.
What? Unlimited supply.
Yeah, like there's paper everywhere.
I really like that actually. That idea of a power. to be
Right.
put into this like whole series. That sounds like I've never watched the series, but that sounds pretty legit, to be honest.
And she's pretty great because like she's like the only competent villain.
Wait, are the others incompetent then? Like thugs?
Yeah, the others are
Okay.
basically
They're walking NPCs?
more or less. They're there for
Oh.
like to make Carmen look good, basically, and this is like Carmen's like actual rival. So she's like the Shigo to the Kim Possible.
Yeah, okay, so I swear to you, like that's what I was thinking about this whole time you're talking about Carmen Sandiego. I'm like, it's like, Kim Possible, are we getting this vibe here?
I think it's very Kim Possible.
Oh, that sounds great.
Just cause you've got fucking Carmen is basically Kim, and then you have Player who is like the Wade, because he's also behind the screen constantly. But it's wild to me that this series started out as like children's edutainment.
Edutainment, yeah, just like along the lines of like Jumpstart.
Right.
Got that on CD as well.
I think I did Math Blaster or something.
Math Blaster. Oh.
But now here in 2019, it's this cartoon action drama.
Cartoon action drama. Whenever gets a day when a cartoon becomes drama, dun dun.
I mean, this is the world we live in.
No, but okay, and here's the doubly wild thing. It's a cartoon action drama that it's still retaining these edutainment elements.
Oh.
And like, I remember when the first season was announced, I'm like, how are they going to make this work? And surprisingly, they really blended the cultural lessons pretty well into the story. Like, it was just one episode that stuck out particular from season 1. It was like in Indonesia, and they were celebrating a holiday, and they were going over like, oh, they celebrate with dances and shadow puppetry and fireworks. So the plot line ended up being like, oh, the bad guys are using the celebration and the fireworks to mask their plan to destroy the world's rice supply.
Those monsters.
I remember during the big fight scene in that episode, they ended up doing like, what is it? They get up onto the shadow puppet stage, and it becomes like those silhouette fights we see.
Oh, okay. Like with a little light behind them, and it's just like action on like this pane of paper or curtain.
Yeah, and then meanwhile,
Nice.
the celebration for their festival is still going on.
One of those tropes. That's good. That's good.
I love it, and I'm just like, wow, this is weird that they got it to work,
Right. Yeah.
No, I'm just kind of like your reaction to it makes me go like want to watch it.
Oh, I'm glad, because season 2 was it? I mean, you watch now, I'm sure you'll catch it up just in time for season 2 to come out, and because it's Netflix, it drops all at once.
Ooh, Netflix. Nice.
Yeah, season 1 kind of ended on a pretty exciting cliffhanger. So
Of course they would do that.
Of course they would.
So do you think they're gonna make like Inspector Gadget again? Like that was my go-to, man.
Inspector Gadget. Oh my god. Okay, I remember bits from the live action movie, and those bits just involve slime for some reason.
Like flubber.
It's because those were the most traumatic.
Wait, what?
Traumatic.
Traumatic? Wait, what episode are you watching, Sal?
I don't remember it, so
You
I'm
purged
just
it out
gonna
of his memory.
throw out a guess. Yeah.
That's all I had on Carmen Sandiego.
Well, what was what stood out about the season 2 trailer that makes it exciting?
So during the first season, part of like Carmen's background is like she was this orphan that was found and trained by the Vile, which is the evil organization. And in the season 2 trailer, it starts hinting at like who is Carmen's family, because she's suddenly seeing these babies with her face.
Oh,
Oh.
interesting.
And then it's just kind of going on like her background's clouded to protect her, and then it just kind of shows a few action scenes. So it's just like, because Carmen herself is shrouded in so much mystery, and it's just kind of like nice because she is like the main character in this one to, I guess, learn more a bit about her.
I see.
Okay.
Interesting. So wait, so I have a question about this whole Carmen Sandiego thing, but it's like, okay, so I've never watched the Carmen Sandiego, like the new Netflix remake, but as you talk about it, it kind of reminds me of Totally Spies. Do you get that vibe when you watch this?
Oh, definitely. I get Totally Spies. I get Totally Spies without all the fetishes. I get Kim Possible. Oh my god. I'm dead. I'm dead. You've killed me.
He's dead.
Good lord.
Go Gadget. I don't know.
Can we talk about that? Like, Totally Spies was a great show, but I think about that show in retrospect, and there was so much weird, like, fetish stuff in there.
Wait, what do you mean? Okay, I don't remember any of this stuff that you're talking about. I honestly don't. Maybe impure mind, I don't know.
No, I'm the one that's dead.
Okay.
Okay. Never mind. Then I won't go into it.
Wait a second.
You want me to talk about this children's cartoon? Okay.
No. Not right now. I would love to talk about this off.
Those nerds over there after dark. Tune in next time.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. Anyway.
But yeah, I get Totally Spies. I get Kim Possible. Really, I get those shows. Was the Wikipedia labels Carmen as like a Robin Hood character in this show, and that's very much true. But that just kind of reminds me, there really aren't many shows like Kim Possible and Totally Spies.
Yeah,
that trope kind of just went away.
Yeah. Like on Disney Channel, it's all about reality TV show, and like you're in a school. And it's like, okay.
It makes sense because
the audience
are in school.
Maybe we're just too old.
It's relatable, but that's cool. I actually want to check it out now.
I'm curious.
Yes, then I've done my job.
Yay!
Like High School Musical, the series.
Oh my god, High School Musical, was it the musical, the series?
Yes.
I'm ready.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Ready.
What? I'm assuming that's everything. So now I will forcibly take the mic away from Alan and deliver it to Sal. Sal, what are you excited about today?
As if we have one mic.
Yes, we do.
As if we're in the same recording space.
Shh, they don't know this.
Alan.
They ruined it.
You've destroyed the illusion.
The illusion's wrong.
Oh, man. Karen, fix that. Anyway. All right, so you guys are going to have to bear with me because I'm going to...
I always do, Sal.
Thank you so much.
We will bear a lot, as much as we can.
I'm going to be talking about Crisis on Infinite Earth, which is going to be a CW DC TV show epic crossover event coming this fall.
This fall.
Yes,
nice.
Great voice. The CW has a slew of superhero TV shows running on their network right now, and every year they have this huge crossover event that brings all these shows together and makes like a wacky story out of all of them. And so this year is going to be, I'm assuming, their last event, and it's going to be called Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is based off of the comic of the same name. So I'm actually going to be covering the comic for...
Oh, no.
We have... Yes.
No, not that you're covering...
You're going to have to...
No, not... I didn't say, oh, no, because... I didn't mean, oh, no, because you're covering the comic. That just made me think, is the Smallville Superman actor cameoing as Ultraman?
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
Yet.
Okay.
Soon.
But if you guys want to, I actually covered the last event on episode 9 of the podcast.
Holy hell.
Episode 9? You're on 45.
Episode 9. Yes, it was a long time ago. I covered it back then. And I actually went back to listen to that episode, and oh boy, like, not only has the production quality of our show gotten better, but Alan actually wasn't really into comics back then.
You converted him.
Who have I become?
What are you?
And
Garen,
so
prepare the serum.
the evolution of listening to you react to the wackiness of comics back then and now is just great. Like, the evolution is so cool.
Alan's transformed.
I'm so proud of the person you've become, Alan.
This is like Alan's like Robin, and you're like Batman. You're just mentoring him right now, and I'm just like that one janitor.
I'm your
But anyway.
greatest accomplishment.
You're my Yes, you're my greatest accomplishment. Anyway.
Wait, what?
So yeah, I'm going to be covering the comic book event Infinite Crisis, since the adaptation is not coming out until December of this year. But I'm going to be talking about it because it is very significant, not only to what this crossover is going to be, but as comics as a whole. So I'm going to be talking about what the story was about and as little detail as possible, because there's so much going on, why it's significant, and why I am excited about the new adaptation coming. So, okay. So Crisis on Infinite Earths came about because the whole line of DC Comics at the time, which was in the 1980s, a lot of the comics were actually on the verge of cancellation, and a bunch of the continuity in these comics had a lot of errors with like crossing over. At this time, a lot of the creators would go and retcon a bunch of stuff and rewrite a lot of continuity where everything was just like a jumbled mess. So DC decided to make this huge event to kind of reset the DC line of comics to make everything make sense again. And so that's where Crisis on Infinite Earths came from. It was written by Marv Wolfman, and the art was done by George Perez.
We know him.
Yeah, we know him. It was a 12-issue limited series, and it was released in 1985.
Oh, vintage.
So, all right. So now I'm going to cover the story. So bear with me. All right. So Crisis on Infinite Earths starts out with Earth 3. If you know what Earth 3 is.
I know what Earth is.
I'm only up to Earth 2.
Okay. So Earth 3 is the home of the Crime Syndicate, which is an evil version of the Justice League. Basically, all the heroes on that Earth are evil. And
okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And the good guy is actually Alexander Luthor.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And so on this Earth, Alexander Luthor marries Lois Lane, and they have a child. And so this is where our story starts. It's them on this Earth, and their Earth is collapsing. It is being taken over by this antimatter wave, and they can't stop it. So what ends up happening is they send their child off into the multiverse as their Earth dies. So it's very similar to like Superman's origins, where Krypton was dying and Superman got sent to Earth. But this kid got sent into the multiverse, which is a lot more risky. But then the story picks up with characters called Harbinger and the Monitor, who are watching the multiverse as it is starting to be destroyed. And the Monitor tells Harbinger that they need to go across the multiverse and collect as many superheroes as they can to help out in stopping the collapse of the multiverse. One notable person that gets picked up by Harbinger is Psycho Pirate, who will be very important later.
Psycho Pirate. Not a name I'm familiar with.
He is a villain, but in this case he was a hero at the time. But as Harbinger that is doing this, she gets possessed by this entity called the Anti-Monitor and doesn't realize it. So that is also going to be important. So next, once that is settled and the Monitor gains all these allies, he tells these heroes that the multiverse is being destroyed and that he needs their help protecting it. and their jobs are going to be to protect these towers that the Monitor built so that he can save the multiverse. And so it's these heroes' job to protect these towers from these shadow creatures that are being sent by the Anti-Monitor to destroy the towers. One notable thing that happens is Alexander Luthor, the baby, actually gets picked up by the Monitor, and he like kind of possesses Alexander Luthor, and that's going to be important later too. So yeah, and Psycho Pirate actually ends up getting picked off by one of the shadows and gets sent to Anti-Monitor, and Psycho Pirate actually gets possessed by the Anti-Monitor as well. And so now Psycho Pirate is with the Anti-Monitor as well as Harbinger. So it's Monitor has all these superheroes, but Anti-Monitor has Psycho Pirate and Harbinger. So then the story picks up again in Earth 1, which is the Earth with all the superheroes we know and love, and the Earth is getting destroyed by this antimatter wave, and people don't know how to fix it. The heroes are trying their best to save as many people as they can, but they can't stop the Earth from essentially disappearing. And one thing that happens is the Flash ends up, during this whole time, he's kind of going in and out of like time because of his powers, and he ends up disappearing, and so they think he dies, but yeah.
Oh gosh, it's like Pokemon Dungeon. Holy cow.
So everything at this point is like super dire. The heroes are not doing well, and to make matters worse, Harbinger ends up killing Monitor in the process of all of this happening. So all hope seems lost, and eventually the multiverse is finally destroyed. So after that, the Monitor, after his death, a projection comes up, and he's like, "Fools, it was my plan all along that I was going to die." You know, that weird trope.
What? You fools. You've activated my trap card.
And so what he ends up doing is, because he dies, his like essence gets put out into the world, and he creates this pocket dimension. And this pocket dimension he calls like the Netherverse, and it actually saves a bunch of heroes that got destroyed in the whole destruction of the multiverse. And so they're safe there in this Netherverse while everything else got destroyed. So on the other side, Anti-Monitor, while the multiverse is getting destroyed, he actually grabs Red Tornado off of Earth 1 and uses him as a catalyst as he makes this weapon to destroy the nether dimension. And then he uses Psycho Pirate's abilities. His abilities is to manipulate people's emotions. So he uses Psycho Pirate's abilities to manipulate all the heroes that are left in the pocket dimension to turn against each other and fight each other. And so what ends up happening after that is all these heroes are fighting each other, but then Harbinger ends up saving everybody by using all of her power to essentially take the pocket dimension and move it out of the reach of Psycho Pirate. But in doing so, she loses all her power. So now everyone... it just gets weirder.
Oh, God, how noble. This is a lot of things happening all at once.
Yes. So now Alexander Luthor, who is with them in this pocket dimension, has for some reason aged to like age 20, even though he was this baby when he got sent to the multiverse. Not sure how that happens.
Summoning sickness,
but but he ends up showing up, and because he crossed like multiverses, he gained this power to create portals to other dimensions.
Of course.
Again, don't know how that happens.
You know, it's something you pick up when you cross multiple dimensions.
Exactly.
Not like you need the Speed Force or anything.
The Flash is irrelevant.
Oh, no.
So Alexander Luthor ends up making this portal to the antimatter universe so that the heroes can cross and fight the Anti-Monitor. And so he does that, and the Anti-Monitor and all the heroes fight, and tragically Supergirl dies in this big battle. So we then pick up with the Flash, who is still popping in and out of time because of his power. But it turns out that he ends up getting captured by the Anti-Monitor and he gets tortured. Fortunately, he ends up escaping, but he figures out that the Anti-Monitor is creating this weapon with Red Tornado, and so he tries to take it down, but in the process of destroying this weapon, the Flash dies as well.
Oh no.
So then we go over...
Not Barry. No!
So then we go over to the villains of the DC universe who don't... They're kind of just there, like, we're not the good guys, but they want to survive. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to do our own thing to try to kill the Anti-Monitor. So what they end up doing is going back in time.
Of course.
For before the creation of the universe, so they can stop the Anti-Monitor.
That is... Okay, you're taking it real far there, guys, I'm sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And so all the villains try to do that, but they end up failing. Fortunately for them, the Spectre, who is this, like, very powerful, like, ultra-dimensional being in the DC universe, he ends up coming to help and fights the Monitor as well.
He's a space ghost.
Yeah.
It's a space...
All he ends up doing is destroying the multiverse in a way where it kind of brings every Earth into one Earth. And so that's kind of what the point of the whole Crisis on Infinite Earth was to bring all the Earths together so continuity would, all reside on one Earth. And so that's what happens here. It's not really relevant to the story, but...
It just kind of happens as a byproduct.
Yeah, regardless. Everything gets reset.
Of course.
And so that's what that happens there. So flash forward back to present time because the villains tried to take down Monitor and so did Spectre, but all they ended up doing was resetting the multiverse. But they're still there in the pocket dimension, and so the Anti-Monitor is there in the pocket dimension, and he ends up fighting all the heroes again, but this time he's kind of in like a weakened state. Superboy Prime ends up coming to help. He kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know what his deal is. And then all like the Supermen from all the Earths that came together help, and then they destroy the Monitor. And that is basically the end and what happens on Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Whoa.
And that was me explaining it in the least amount of details possible. There is so much more that I had to skim over.
Sorry, there's so much going on, and I'm realizing now the couple of adaptations I've seen have only ever lifted portions of this plot line.
They've only touched like just a fraction.
Yeah. And this all happened in 12 issues too.
What?
Like this was a 12-issue series.
Wow.
But they also had a bunch of tie-ins as well. So you know how events nowadays will have their tie-ins. That's what they did here as well. But yeah, that's Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was like this huge deal back in the 80s because this has never happened before. Like this kind of mega crossover event.
Super crossover. Convoluted crossover. Final destination.
No items.
No items.
Oh, it's important because it paved the way to like events like this that would happen in the future. Now we get like a slew of events like every year that kind of happen, but this was like the first thing, and it reset the whole continuity of DC Comics. Not to the point where everything like got reset like what happened in Flashpoint, which happened way later on, but it was like the first thing to retcon things in like a major level. So back to the reason why I got excited about Crisis on Infinite Earths being adapted by the CW is because, I mean, first of all, the scale of what Crisis on Infinite Earths is like super impressive. And the fact that they want to try to do this in live action, like they didn't have all of the Avengers set up to do something like this, right?
Right.
So I'm curious what they're going to do, and what they did last year with their crossover Elseworlds was super, super cool. So I'm excited to what they're going to do now. But what really has me excited is that they're actually pulling actors, like you said, Alan, from a bunch of old shows that we've had either on the CW or otherwise. So Tom Welling and Erica Durance, who were on Smallville, they're coming back to reprise their roles as Lois Lane and Superman in this huge crossover
extravaganza.
Brandon Routh, who also played Superman, is going to play Superman as well. Kevin Conroy is coming back to play Bruce Wayne.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and there's just a bunch of actors that are being pulled from all these, like, either shows or old movies that are coming to this crossover event, and it's so ambitious, and I just can't wait for this to happen, because that's, like, so cool. But, yeah.
This seems like a Dark Phoenix level of story difficulty to adapt. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, I guess applaud to CW for attempting this. I know I give them a lot of shit.
Yes, I know you don't like the CW shows, but oh man, I love them.
The CW is pretty good. I mean, I watched The Arrow and some
I
of
did
the
not like
Legends
Arrow.
and Flash. It's good. I mean, The Arrow was okay. I like the Flash more.
Yeah, and one of the things that people are speculating that's going to happen is, because Crisis on Infinite Earths was made to kind of pull all the continuity together, they think that is what's going to happen here.
What, we're gonna get a Justice League show?
No.
Just a massive tie-in.
On the CW shows, Arrow and Flash exist on the same Earth, but like Supergirl is on Earth 2 or Earth 39 or so, I don't remember. And then Black Lightning is also on a different Earth. The Legend of Tomorrow are on Earth 1, but it's kind of messy, so I don't know how that works. So what's probably going to end up happening is everyone's going to get pulled to the same Earth, and so that the shows moving forward will have easier time crossing over with each other.
Huh, okay.
So
Oh my
so
gosh.
that's super exciting, as well as the potential of possible spin-offs that might come out of this crisis.
Crisis Infinite Go.
No.
So last year on the Elseworlds crossover, Batwoman was introduced, and now she has her own show.
Oh.
So we're thinking something might happen like that here as well. But yeah, it's super ambitious, super exciting, and yeah, that's Crisis on Infinite Earths. Let's see how they adapt it, because it seems impossible.
Dang.
While you were recounting the story of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and you're talking about like that really paved the way for all the future team up crossover stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that, I guess, I don't know. I just got a taste of history, because while you were giving that story, I'm like, wow, I can see a lot of the stuff from DC Metal that was in this.
Yes, exactly.
I'm like, whoa.
So, and then I'm pretty sure this was done before the Infinity War as well. So there's a lot of stuff in that harkens back to this as well.
Harkens is a good word. Yes.
Thank you. I'm a writer.
It's crazy that the CW, they're not only adapting this big, wild story, but it's this thing that was this pivotal part of comic history.
Yeah, and I think they want to like capture a piece of that, because this is also their like first go around, right? For these, essentially the first phase of their like line of superheroes. And so it makes sense to do this huge crossover in the same vein of their like DC Universe's first crossover event too. if that makes sense.
Yeah. I maybe maybe I should start giving these shows a chance.
I think you should. Personally, like I don't know as much as Sal, definitely, and I don't think I even know as much as you in these. But I've watched most of, if not all, of the Flash and the Arrow, and some of Legends. And I
Then
know,
you've already seen more than me.
but see, okay, this is coming from like like comic book context though, and I'm just like these are good, and I'm sitting, I'm like, okay, so like what's happening? Like what is all this stuff? And so like I wouldn't be against reading the comics. I just don't even know where to begin, let alone buy all these comics to read.
Yeah,
But,
it is pretty daunting.
yeah.
But, I mean, once you get into comics, it's great.
Is it because you're numb from all the things you're reading that you don't just feel the hit anymore?
Possibly. But Alan, I think like once you get past like how melodramatic a lot of the stuff is, because it's very CW, it has all the like wackiness of comics, and it's just like so fun. And I think that's the appeal of the CW shows, like from a strictly like writing standpoint, like the dialogue and stuff is not great.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the whole like action between like Dina and stuff. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah, but it's like so fun that it kind of cancels everything out. So
Okay.
that's why I think it's great.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely a rhythm to it. That's why I like the Flash so much. It has a good rhythm.
I wanted to say Hughes
Hello.
addressing the idea that yes, getting into comics is daunting because you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Some good advice I have for you and listeners with the same concern is if you go to your local comic book store and just ask your local
The
dealer,
barista.
your comics barista, your comics sommelier.
Yes.
Just ask them for recommendations because they know what's good. It's their job.
It's their job.
It really makes it easy. Yeah, it's their job.
It makes them sound like an NPC.
My point is, ask them for recommendations. That's how I got into comics.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you make fun of it, but it literally, like, to work there, you need to know a lot about comics.
You bring up a good point though. Like I'm afraid, like part of me, it's not the asking part and seeing what's up. It's like the going down the rabbit hole type thing, because it's. I live in California. There's just a huge potential for me to just get like, oh, okay, there's this event going on. They're selling comic books. So many comic books.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Going back to knowing a lot about comic books, I want to mention real quick, I was listening to this podcast that Coy was on, and he was explaining how he's like Collider's expert in comic books and how he has to keep up with like every comic book.
Oh, jeez.
He was explaining how he reads, I believe it was like 70 comic books a week.
Oh.
And that idea was just like, oh my God, I will never be able to touch that level of knowledge that he has. Oh man, I love him. He's great. Anyway.
So that's my quota, 70 comic books a week.
Yeah, it is like literally his job to know everything about comics.
Wow. Oh, damn,
So-
Coy.
That's pretty intense. It's just like, I need you to know things. Okay.
That was what we got excited about this week. Vintage Lenses, Carmen Sandiego, and Crisis on Infinite Earths adaptation. That last one being, I think, the most anticipated now.
And the funny thing is, I realized there's a certain commonality to our topics, even if they don't seem related at all. And it's the fact that like these were older things that just resurfaced right now.
Holy hell.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, wait, there's always a theme.
The theme is we're ancient. No, I'm kidding.
We're artifacts.
And we're on but on this artifact right now.
Listeners, thank you so much for joining and enthusing with us. If you like what you heard, consider sharing with the buddies so you guys can nerd out together. Just like we just did.
Spread the word like a contagion.
The virulent plague.
The pox.
If you'd like to help out the show, then a review on our iTunes and our Stitcher pages, they go a long way towards podcast visibility. If you have any recommendations for the show, feel free to put them in the comments of our SoundCloud page. I'm talking things we should check out, show improvements, etc. If you want to see pictures from our just like convention coverage, I remember at Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con was where we got to see George Perez and meet Coy and Perry from Collider, and that was amazing. And I now am thinking back to that, and I want to go again. You can just find that on Instagram. If you like what we do here on Those Nerds Over There, and you want to help, then consider becoming a patron. Our patrons are like our producers. You know, it's thanks to their support that we get the privilege to set aside this time and make this show, and that's thanks to them. You know, and we try to like give back. So we make some bonus content for our patrons. So
Bonus who?
That's a 100% orange juice deep cut.
Orange. Citrus.
If you want a place to hang out with all three of us, then feel free to join our Discord. We have dedicated channels for topic discussion. Of course you are.
Senpai noticed me.
We have dedicated channels for topic discussion, show improvements, nut jar offerings. Links to all these pages can be found on our website, thosenerdscast.wixsite.com/home. That's WIXSITE.com/home. Hughes!
Hi, Senpai.
Do you have anything to plug?
Let me just take this European socket here and just stick it in.
Okay.
No, it's not fitting. Uh-oh. Hello, my name is Hughes. Like I said, I like to do photography, and the website for my personal photography is kind of in the making, but I do have a blog along with Sal, and that is at Got a Moment, and that's with 2ts.com. As well as my Instagram page, which is Leal_the_gold because chemistry. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I don't really go on Facebook, but you're welcome to add me at Hughesley.
Oh, wow.
Yes, Alan, feel free to add me.
I would never give anyone my Facebook anyway.
I mean, I hardly go onto it, but if you guys are willing to, then go for it, I guess. That doesn't sound very convincing.
I have not been on Facebook in several years. I do want to throw a quick spotlight on a post you did, Hughes, on your guys' blog where
I did.
You did poetry about 2 weeks ago.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Shine.
Yeah. Hughes put a post where he did a poem, and it was very deep and thoughtful and provocative that I think y'all should check out. Sal.
And Salvador.
No, not my full name.
Salad.
Salzik. Salamander.
If you want to find me on social media, I'm at Salzik on Twitter and Twitch, and I'm at Mr. Salzik on Instagram. And I don't have to plug the blog because it was already plugged.
I'll plug you in the blog. Oh, wait, I did.
Alan?
I have no social media. I only exist in the podcast.
That's right. He's a robot. I forgot.
Yep. But you can contact the show at Those Nerds Cast on Twitter. All right, Hughes, thank you again so much for joining us this week. Listeners, thank you too for listening through our nonsense. We'll see you again next Wednesday.
Goodbye.
Oh boy. 3 a.m.